It's not all bad news. Sometimes there is good news. The leader of Hezbollah, Naim Qassem, said that his Iranian-backed terrorist army had lost its arms supply route through Syria as a result of the fall of the Assad regime in Syria. Syria, under Bashar al-Assad, was part of an Iranian corridor from Iran to Lebanon. Iran could send weapons overland across Iraq, then to Syria, and then into Lebanon. Without access to Syria, Iran is blocked from reaching Lebanon. One of the reasons that the Assad regime fell is because Israel decimated Hezbollah. A decade ago, Hezbollah fought in the Syrian civil war on the side of Assad. With Hezbollah weakened, it was in no position to help Assad survive. The Iranian axis of terror is now weak. Now is the time for maximum pressure on the Iranian regime and its proxy armies. Maximum pressure on the Iranian regime until it dismantles its military nuclear program. And maximum pressure on the Iranian regime until it chooses to live in peace with its neighbors and live in peace with its own people. For over a year, the Iranian regime and its terror proxies have been attacking Israel on 7 fronts. One of these fronts is Judea and Samaria, what some call the West Bank. Have you seen what's happening in the West Bank? The Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian government in the West Bank, has had enough of the Islamic Jihad terrorist organization. Islamic Jihad is backed by the Iranian regime. It's a terrorist group that doesn't only seek the destruction of Israel, it seeks the elimination of any Palestinian who stands in its way. In recent hours, Palestinian security forces have entered the city of Jenin and eliminated a senior commander of Islamic Jihad. Palestinian forces have put up checkpoints around their own city. A Palestinian general said that his forces thwarted a disaster in Jenin. He said Islamic Jihad was planning to detonate a car bomb among Palestinian Authority security personnel and civilians. The Iranian regime and the terrorist groups that it sponsors threaten anyone and everyone in the Middle East seeking a calm, stable, and better life. Let's hope that Israelis and Palestinians can continue to find common ground against shared threats and extremism. Finally, there is a new report by the Henry Jackson Society in the UK that is a must-read. It's already making waves. It was written by Andrew Fox, a former British paratrooper and an expert on urban warfare. The bottom line of the report is that Hamas's casualty numbers in Gaza are completely unreliable and inflated. The media has relied on these unreliable Hamas casualty numbers without offering sufficient criticism of those numbers. For example, Hamas lists Palestinians who Hamas killed directly or by rockets that fell short as people who were killed by Israel. Hamas also counts natural deaths as deaths caused by Israeli strikes. Much more detail is in the report, and we will certainly have more to say about it. You can find it on our social media platforms, and make sure to also follow Andrew Fox. Now let's take some questions from our audience watching live on social media.
Thank you, Ashley. This question is from Instagram. How long do you expect Israeli forces will remain in the buffer zone in Syria?
Okay, great question. So it's important to understand that that buffer zone was established in 1974 following the Yom Kippur War. And that buffer zone was agreed upon by both sides, that there would be basically a ceasefire. There would be no fighting between the two sides. And it was agreed upon that that buffer zone would not have any military from either side in there. Now, since the Assad regime has fallen, and that side has been complicit to this agreement since 1974, the Israeli Defense Forces will remain in that buffer zone until they can ensure that whoever takes leadership and whatever happens, whatever the future holds for Syria, that that side or the new regime will uphold this agreement as well. So Israel will be there to defend its people and its borders until we can ensure that the other side will not attack and will remain, will keep the status quo just as has been for 50 somewhat years.
This is a question from our live stream. There are reports that Israeli officials went to Jordan to discuss the potential spillover from the war in Syria. What do you think Israel and Jordan are discussing, and how might they find common ground?
Well, certainly there are many scenarios in the Middle East. You know, the Middle East is a crazy and unpredictable place. And the Jordanian regime, thus far, you know, we have peace with Jordan and they are a stable regime here in the Middle East. And it is Israel's in every interest to ensure that extremist groups don't take over in Jordan as well. We want to keep the peace that we have with Jordan. The Jordanian kingdom, the Hashemite kingdom, of course, is also worried, as you mentioned in your question, that there will be spillover from Syria, extremist groups, you know, Al-Qaeda related, ISIS related, spilling over from Syria, trying to infiltrate Jordan. That is a real threat as well. Also, Iranian proxies. Now, as we've mentioned earlier today, the Iranians don't have that supply chain route that they used to have to bring weapons closer to Israel's border. So I could imagine that within those talks, they are also discussing how to ensure that Iran does not take advantage of Jordan to bring weapons once again to Israel's border.
There are many questions on our live stream about the potential for a hostage deal. There have been reports that Israel and Hamas are potentially closer. How do you see the situation?
Well, on a personal level, of course, I am very, very eager and hopeful as my cousin, Agam, is still in captivity there. And hopefully we will see her come home as soon as possible. We have seen Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu make statements just a few weeks ago that the time is right for a deal. He has offered $5 million to Palestinians who could bring back a hostage as well as safe passage. So the Israeli government is, of course, interested in bringing home all of the hostages. It is time for Hamas to let them go.
We're about a month away from the incoming Trump administration. What are you looking for U.S. policy in terms of Israel's security, whether it's Syria or any of the other fronts?
Well, I think the big question here, of course, is Iran. As we always say, it is, the head of the octopus that has its tentacles all over the Middle East. And I hope to see this, again, personal opinion here. I hope to see that President Trump will either drain Iran's bank accounts once again and reverse the flow of cash that the previous administration did allow into Iran, which essentially allowed Iran to fund Hezbollah and Hamas. And, it's what we've seen with October 7th. If Iran didn't have those funds, I don't think we would have seen such attacks, so many rockets, 10,000 rockets on Israel coming from the north. That is all Iran funded. So that would be my first hope, to see Iran's bank accounts run dry. Secondly, I would hope to see something happen with the nuclear program, Iran's nuclear program. I personally don't believe in agreements with the regime. I think that we need to put an end to the nuclear program once and for all, and hopefully President Trump or soon to be once again President Trump will have Israel's back on this. And third of all, I hope to see the Iranian people finally free from their dictatorship, from their regime, their oppressive regime that we have seen what they do to their dissidents and to their women. And I hope that President Trump can help facilitate the Iranian people to bring freedom to Iran once again.
We have time for two more questions. This one is from our Instagram live stream. What do you think of the Druze villages in Syria that want to be annexed to Israel? Have you seen these videos, and what do you make of these reports and the fate of minorities in Syria?
So I have seen those videos, and for me as an Israeli, I have to say I'm not surprised. The Druze community here in Israel is thriving. They are a very loyal community to Israel. They serve in the IDF. They are very proud Israelis. And I'm assuming that they see their extended family on the Israeli side of the border living amazing lives as minorities within the Jewish state. And again, personally, this is a personal note, I would welcome them with open arms, as I personally just really like the Druze community and their culture. But again, not surprising to see, and this is something that we have said for years, that minorities across the Middle East would all prefer to live within Israel because they understand that Israel is the freest democracy in the Middle East with the highest standard of living for anyone, whether they are Jewish, Muslim, Christian, or Druze. So I would welcome them with open arms. I don't think we're going to see that actually happen, but I guess it's something. It's an anecdote that can really show the truth about the Middle East. The people who live here know which side of the border is the safer one to be on.
This is our last question today. You've mentioned the Iranian fronts and the Iranian axis that has been weakened. What is the general mood in Israel? Are people optimistic about our position 14 months after the war, or are they pessimistic or just realistic?
I think the general feeling, especially since we've seen the Assad regime fall and we've seen Hezbollah completely crumbled, I think the general feeling in the country is quite optimistic, keeping in mind that we still have 100 hostages that we need to bring home and many more wounded soldiers that we still need to take care of. And we still have soldiers that unfortunately are being killed almost on a daily basis. And so it's not over. We don't feel like it's over. We are still at war. But the general feeling is an optimistic one that the Iranian regime is slowly losing its strength. It is weakening. And as I mentioned before, we hope to see a better future here in the Middle East. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that once all of this is done, Israel's strength in the region has provided real concrete evidence and support to why countries such as Saudi Arabia should join the Abraham Accords. And hopefully, after the Iranian regime falls, that one day Iran could join the Abraham Accords and we could see a real peace in the Middle East. So that's all the time that we have today. Thank you very much for tuning in. And we'll be back tomorrow, as usual, at 3 p.m. Israel time, 8 a.m. East Coast time. Have a great day.